My name was Amir. I was a respected politician, a pillar in my conservative Saudi community. My life was meticulously crafted around tradition and duty, a facade that masked a growing emptiness in my soul. The weight of expectation bore down on me, creating a chasm between my outward obedience and the restless spirit within. I wore my faith like armor, yet deep inside I was losing the battle. Then, everything shattered in a moment that felt like eternity. I found myself in a place between life and death, a void of silence that echoed my deepest fears. There, in that dim expanse, I encountered a radiant figure, bursting with light. Jesus called my name softly, yet every syllable hit me like a drumbeat in the stillness. What I heard next unraveled everything I thought I knew about faith and freedom. He showed me the chains of spiritual deception that had bound me, hidden beneath a veneer of piety. It was a confronting revelation, a call to awaken from a slumber that had lulled me into complacency, and the realization struck hard. I was not just serving my country, I had been part of a system that thrived on control and fear. It was a spiritual war raging behind closed doors, targeting the very essence of humanity. Returning from that encounter, I was no longer the same man. I had navigated the threshold of death and witnessed the truth beyond the veil. But with this awakening came a harsh reality. I was now a pariah. My life was shattered. My family turned their backs and my community cast me out. The fear and shame that gripped me were suffocating, yet a spark of hope flickered inside. It beckoned me forward to seek the truth, no matter the cost. Join me on this journey as I explore the depths of my transformation. It is a story of desperation, discovery, and divine purpose, a purpose that yearns to touch lives beyond my own. But before we dive deeper, I want to hear from you. He had shown me the deception ingrained in our societal structures, the hidden agendas of the elite that perpetuated division and fear. I could no longer remain silent. I felt an urgent compulsion to share these revelations, to get the word out that true faith could exist beyond the constraints of manipulation and control. Yet, as I contemplated how to voice my insights, my heart tightened with anxiety. The first steps toward sharing my experience were agonizing. Confronting the reality that my community had turned against me made every interaction fraught with tension. I began to find solace in those few who still listened, perhaps even skeptically, to my narrative of awakening. I sought out other seekers of truth, kindred spirits who had felt the weight of the hidden agenda press upon their own consciousness. Together, we bonded over our collective experiences, stirring hope in one another. I found strength in the realization that we wouldn't be silenced easily. Our shared mission breathed life into our spiritual warfare. Despite the fear and the guilt I battled, the hope ignited in me during that near-death experience could not be extinguished. It became a rallying cry within my soul, urging me to push forward. I knew that my story had the potential to inspire others who felt caught in the same deceptive maze. I could envision the conversations that would ensue, the barriers that could be broken. If I could help even one person see the light, it would be worth the pain I had endured. With each day, I felt more resolute in my mission to reveal the truth, to unearth the deception, and to advocate for a faith rooted in love, understanding, and awakening, despite the risks that lay ahead. After my encounter with Jesus in that life-altering dream, I felt an urgency within me that couldn't be ignored. I had been thrown into a swirling uncertainty, desperate for truth in a world soaked in deception. The questions that pressed upon my heart grew louder, drowning out the familiar chants of tradition that had once given me comfort. My life as a politician in a conservative society now felt like a gilded cage, its bars adorned with expectations and fear. I knew I had to embark on a clandestine quest for truth, a journey that would force me to confront my beliefs head-on. In the dead of night, when the world around me was asleep, I began my secret studies. With trembling hands, I opened the pages of the Bible. I was filled with awe and fear, praying that no one would discover my late-night readings. As I delved deeper into its teachings, the stories of hope and redemption ignited a fire within my soul. Each verse seemed to speak directly to my spirit, presenting a stark contrast to the heavy dogmas I had been taught. I found solace in the words of Jesus, feeling as though he was calling me to a greater understanding, a truth waiting to be revealed. Listening to Christian testimonies became a lifeline during this time. I found various videos, stories of transformation and awakening that resonated with me deeply. I realized I was not alone. There were others who had faced similar struggles, who had felt the grip of tradition pulling them away from the light. These individuals shared bold accounts of encounters with Jesus that changed their lives, instilling in me a sense of camaraderie. Each story fueled my desire for liberation from the hidden agenda that clouded our faith. The tension between the new direction I was taking and my old life mounted with every revelation, each moment intensifying the spiritual war within. It was during this time that I stumbled upon a supportive underground group composed of individuals just like me. We met in secret, our gatherings shrouded in the veil of darkness, yet filled with the warm glow of shared hope. Each meeting was a refuge from the suffocating oppression of our environments, allowing us to speak freely of our faith, doubts, and the true nature of our spiritual awakening. There was an urgency in our discussions, a righteous anger against the deception we had lived under for so long. In those moments, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Surrounded by others who understood the battle I was fighting made the journey less daunting. Despite the peace I found with this new community, the fear of losing my old life hovered like a dark cloud. What would my family think? Would they ever understand my path? The thought of being ostracized and punished for my beliefs filled me with dread. Yet, I couldn't shake the hope that blossomed within me. This revival was worth every ounce of fear. I began to envision a world where truth prevailed over hidden agendas, one where individuals proudly embraced their faith without the chains of manipulation. As I caught glimpses of this future, my resolve strengthened, preparing me for the inevitable confrontation that lay ahead. This awakening was more than a mere change in belief. It was a powerful call to action, destined to spread far and wide. Realizing that my encounter with Jesus was a divine calling ignited a fierce determination within me. I could no longer remain a passive observer in the spiritual war that had been raging around me. The revelation I received during that dream was not just for my benefit, it was a mandate to spread the truth I had discovered. The more I reflected on his message, the more I understood that my life had been transformed for a purpose greater than myself. I felt an urgency to reach out to those trapped in the same deception I once was, to help them see the light I had found in the depths of my soul. The fear of what lay ahead began to form a juxtaposition within me. On one hand, I felt invigorated, haunted by an awakening that pressed against the confines of my former life. On the other, I was acutely aware of the dangers that came with my new understanding. My community, steeped in tradition and bound to a hidden agenda, had not taken kindly to those who dared to challenge the status quo. I was no longer just a politician. I was now stepping into the role of an evangelist, driven by a mission that could cost me everything I held dear. The love and acceptance I sought from my family felt like a distant dream, overshadowed by my commitment to truth. I began to gather with like-minded souls, individuals who had also felt the stirring of awakening. In those clandestine meetings, we shared our experiences and the impact of Jesus in our lives. Each story reinforced the urgency I felt. Together, we spoke of the manipulation wielded by the elite, how they controlled narratives to keep us divided, and how the fear of standing out imprisoned our communities. These conversations brought hope, illuminating the paths we were all meant to travel. I felt an overwhelming responsibility to share these messages beyond our little group, to take them into the broader world where many still languished in darkness. As I prepared to step into this new role, the tension within me grew. How could I confront the very belief systems that had governed my life and the lives of those around me? The doubt that had once gripped my soul was now replaced with fierce resolve. I knew the risks involved, yet the love I had encountered in my dream spurred me on. I could feel Jesus guiding me, urging me to remain steadfast in my mission, even as fear nestled in the pit of my stomach. I envisioned myself speaking before crowds, unveiling not just my story but the truth that could awaken others trapped in the cycle of deception. Spurred on by that love, I realized that this journey wasn't just about confronting my fears. It was about hope, about healing the rifts between friends, family, and communities. I prepared for the difficult conversations ahead, hoping to bridge the gaps that had formed due to my revelations. My heart ached for reconciliation with my family, and for the possibility of leading others to the same awakening I had experienced. I understood that the road would not be easy, but the truth I now held was worth every struggle. This was a calling to love fiercely and to illuminate the darkness around me, marking the beginning of a battle that I was finally ready to fight. Ultimately, I made the painful decision to leave my home, a choice that would redefine my very existence. I had spent years navigating the turbulent waters of politics, all while holding tightly to a traditional identity that no longer felt authentic. Each day became a struggle to reconcile the expectations of my community with the truth I had come to understand, the truth revealed to me by Jesus during my near-death experience. Embracing a new identity wasn't just symbolic, it was a necessary leap into the unknown, a commitment to the awakening within my soul that demanded to be expressed. As I prepared to sever ties with my previous life, a deep sense of mourning enveloped me. I couldn't shake the weight of what I was leaving behind. The family I loved, the friends who had stood by me, and the community that had given me purpose. Yet, with every tear that fell, I felt the liberation that came from reclaiming my narrative. I understood that this transformation was about more than just me. It was about planting seeds of faith in a world longing for truth. I was ready to help others break free from the hidden agendas that had ensnared them, much like I had been ensnared. What Jesus had shared with me was a revelation that transcended individual struggles. It was a call to action in a world suffocated by deception. As I traversed these unfamiliar paths, I began to encounter others who felt the weight of societal pressures, those who shared the same yearning for authentic connection and spiritual freedom. This community became my sanctuary, a space where we could support each other in our respective journeys toward truth. Together, we stood against the elite that sought to manipulate our beliefs, rising in solidarity to challenge the narratives that relegated us to silence and fear. With each meeting, I felt my resolve strengthen. The sense of urgency within me grew, propelling me to share my story and the truths that surrounded it. I spoke of the spiritual war that raged not only within our hearts, but also in our societies, highlighting how the manipulation of fear and division served the interests of the powerful. Each time I recounted my experience and the unveiling of truth, I saw the flicker of hope in others' eyes. The possibility of awakening was tangible, a call that resonated deeply within our collective consciousness. I embarked on this journey knowing full well the risks it entailed. The fear of backlash still lingered, but it no longer held sway over my heart. In the grip of liberation, I felt compelled to challenge the status quo, to speak boldly against the forces of deception. There was a power in sharing our stories, a sacred act that could bridge divisions and illuminate the shadows. With the love of Jesus guiding me, I was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, driven by the belief that transforming lives was worth any sacrifice. The world awaited our message, and I was determined to ensure it couldn't be silenced. Years have passed since I made the fateful decision to leave my home and embrace a new path, and now I find myself in a new country dedicated to my mission. The journey has been anything but easy, but it has been filled with purpose. I have transformed into a respected voice in my community, helping others navigate their own spiritual awakenings, while holding on to the hope of one day reconciling with my family back home. The memories of my past linger, often shadowed by a bittersweet longing for reconciliation, yet I remain steadfast in my belief that the truth is worth the struggle. In this new life, I've become a bridge for those seeking enlightenment. I spend my days engaging with individuals who, like me, have felt the weight of deception pressing down on their spirit, entangling them in a web of hidden agendas. Each story shared only deepens my resolve. The spiritual war that enshrouds our reality is all too evident, marked by the manipulations of the elite who thrive on our divisions. My heart aches as I listen to tales of confusion and despair, and I am driven to shine a light on the paths that lead to truth and freedom. There are moments when the guilt of leaving my family behind washes over me, threatening to shatter the resolve I've built. I often wonder if they understand the choice I made, if they can see that my journey was not about abandoning them, but about embracing a deeper faith. The hope of one day reuniting fills my heart with warmth and also a haunting fear of rejection. Yet in my encounters with others, I have witnessed the transformative power of an awakening mindset. I remind myself that each interaction is an opportunity to show them the love and compassion that Jesus exemplified, a love that transcends fear and tradition. My spiritual awakening has opened my eyes to the interconnectedness of our struggles. I've seen firsthand how societies are fractured by fear and deception, the very foundation of many of our beliefs, manipulated to serve the interests of those in power. As I share my story, I strive to inspire others to question, explore, and break free from the chains of those hidden agendas. Each time I speak in public forums or intimate gatherings, I notice the glimmers of hope igniting in others. It fills me with purpose, urging me to push through the inevitable pushback that accompanies discussions about faith and spirituality. Despite the challenges I face, the revelation that initially propelled me into this mission remains a guiding light. I remember my encounter with Jesus vividly, his warmth, the clarity of his messages, and the compelling urgency with which he called me to act. That moment stays with me, reminding me that my journey is about planting seeds of faith in others. It's a calling, one that I've committed myself to with every fiber of my being. As I continue to share my truth with those who are ready to listen, I know the impact of awakening can reverberate far beyond my personal experience, connecting us all in the shared fight for liberation from the deceptions that seek to control us. The truth began to unravel for me during a particularly restless period of my life, when I found myself grappling with doubt. Despite my position as a respected politician, the weight of expectation pressed down on me. Every day I fulfilled my duties under the scrutiny of a community that valued tradition over exploration. But internally I felt empty, as if something profound was missing. It wasn't until a near-death experience that the true nature of my existence was revealed to me, forcing me to confront the hidden agendas that shaped my reality. In that critical moment, after a near-fatal accident, I experienced a vivid encounter with Jesus. In the darkness of my unconsciousness, a brilliant light suddenly enveloped me. I could feel a palpable presence, and as I stepped closer, there he was, radiant and full of compassion. "Amir," he called, and in that moment, every fear, every doubt, and every resentment I held seemed to dissolve away. His voice was a balm to my troubled spirit, awakening a yearning I had buried beneath layers of obligation and repression. He began to reveal truths that transcended my understanding, opening my eyes to a spiritual war that raged silently around us. Jesus showed me the deception woven into the fabric of our society, the manipulation employed by the elite to maintain control over the masses. I saw that religion, which had been my refuge, had become a prison for many, shackled by fear and tradition. The hidden agenda of those in power took shape before my eyes, how they cultivated division among us, pushing us to fight one another while they reveled in the chaos. This revelation struck me hard. It forced me to question everything I had been taught, to scrutinize the very foundation upon which my beliefs were built. I realized that the truth I sought was not just a personal journey, but a collective awakening. As I returned to consciousness, I carried with me the weight of this newfound knowledge. The urgency to act consumed me. I felt a profound obligation to share the revelations I had received. to help others who were also trapped in the prison of deception. My mission became clear: expose the lies and lead others toward the light of truth. Yet, as I set out to do this, I was met with resistance. Those around me clung to their traditional beliefs, unwilling to confront the unsettling truths I had unearthed. The fear of rejection loomed large, but the love and clarity I felt from Jesus kept me grounded. I began to form connections with individuals who had also experienced moments of awakening. Our shared stories of struggle and enlightenment created a powerful bond, fueling our mission to challenge the narrative established by the elite. Each testimony reinforced my resolve, and with every conversation I felt the sparks of a collective awakening igniting among us. It was not just about my experience anymore. It was about all of us joining together in this spiritual war against the forces of deception. The world needed to hear our voices, and I was determined to be one of those voices crying out against the darkness. As I embarked on this journey, the hope of effecting change brewed inside me like a relentless storm. I envisioned a future where people could step out of the shadows of fear and embrace the truth, where love and understanding would flourish in place of division and hatred. I was ready to take on whatever obstacles lay ahead, committed to spreading the message of hope and awakening that had so radically transformed my own life. The world was waiting, and I felt compelled to let the truth be known, no matter the cost. Now that you've journeyed with me through the shadows of my past, I urge you to reflect. Have you ever felt a whisper within, urging you to question what lies behind the veil of societal norms? In the deepest recesses of your spirit, have you sensed an awakening beckoning you to confront the hidden agendas that may have entangled your beliefs? Because, dear friend, the struggle doesn't end here, it's just begun. The revelation I received in that ethereal moment with Jesus was not merely a personal awakening, but a clarion call to all of us engaged in this spiritual war. It revealed the dark deceptions woven into the fabric of our lives, where power thrives on control and fear. The truth is, we are all part of a grand narrative, a fight for liberation and authenticity that transcends individual stories. And there is a greater urgency for us all to awaken, to unshackle ourselves from ideologies that imprison our hearts and souls. So now, I want to hear from you. What truths have you wrestled with in your own life? Have you ever experienced a moment that left you questioning everything? Share your insights and experiences in the comments below. Where are you watching this from, and what time is it in your part of the world? Share it in the comments, and if you feel a stirring in your heart, subscribe to Truth from Beyond for the revelations that await, for our journey together promises to illuminate the path to freedom found in Christ. In a conservative neighborhood in Saudi Arabia, the atmosphere often felt thick with an underlying current of spiritual apathy. As a politician, I was well aware of the facade that held sway over our lives. The community around me was steeped in superficial adherence to Islamic traditions, where outward appearances masked a pervasive fear of questioning the established norms. Beneath this veneer of faith, many felt trapped, bound by the rigid expectations placed upon us. It was a reality I was deeply familiar with, yet one I seldom acknowledged openly. There was a growing unease in my heart, a whisper of discontent that stirred within me, begging for attention. As a child, I was taught the importance of loyalty to our beliefs, standing firm in the traditions handed down through generations. I embraced my role, striving to be a model citizen and a loyal member of the community. Yet, as I grew older, the questions began to gnaw at me. I felt a sense of disconnection. Despite my efforts, there was an emptiness that clung to my spirit. It wasn't until a particularly restless night that everything changed. A vivid dream gripped me, transporting me into an encounter with Jesus, a figure I had been conditioned to view through a lens of misunderstanding. In the dream, I found myself walking along a vast expanse, a serene light illuminating the path ahead. Suddenly, there he stood, radiant and full of compassion. Jesus looked into my soul, the love in his eyes piercing through years of doubt and confusion. As he spoke, I felt as if the scales had been lifted from my eyes. Your voice matters, and together we can foster a community of seekers driven by love, understanding, and transformation. Before you go, don't miss out on future revelations that await you. Subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. Each video we share will draw you deeper into the light of understanding, helping you navigate the spiritual warfare surrounding us. The journey ahead holds powerful stories of awakening that could change your life. I'm Amir, and thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, the path to truth may be daunting, but it is incredibly beautiful, and you don't have to walk it alone. The revelation was striking. He unveiled the hidden agenda of those who sought to manipulate our faith, illustrating the true nature of the spiritual war being fought around us. I was shown the lies woven into the fabric of our society by the elite, who thrived on fear and division, ensuring that we remained trapped in cycles of ignorance and despair. Every word he spoke echoed through my being, resonating with the deepest yearnings of my spirit. I was struck by the realization that my understanding of faith had been colored by deception, entangled in the dogmas that confined me. The truths I encountered in that dream forced me to confront the hypocrisy that had seeped into my own life, the very same hypocrisy I had perpetuated in my political career. This awakening ignited a fiery urgency within me, pressing me to seek a path of authenticity and love, rather than obedience forged from fear. Upon waking, the world around me seemed painfully stark in comparison to the light I had just experienced. I was left grappling with the weight of my responsibilities and the potential repercussions of publicly acknowledging my encounter. What would my colleagues think? How would my family react? The fear of ostracism loomed large, yet I could not shake the need to share this transformative experience with others. I recognized the darkness that had clouded so many hearts and understood that the truth must be revealed, regardless of the consequences. This was not merely a personal journey. It was a call to action, a chance to awaken others to the spiritual war that demanded our attention and involvement. As I embarked on this path, I felt a profound sense of purpose welling within me, igniting a desire to illuminate the truth for all those trapped in the shadows. As a respected 35-year-old politician in Saudi Arabia, I often found myself wrapped in a polished exterior, greeted with nods of approval and admiration from my peers. I fulfilled my familial expectations with ease, presenting an image of self-assuredness that masked the emotional emptiness inside me. Beneath the surface, I grappled with societal pressures regarding my faith, feeling the weight of traditions that loomed heavy over my heart. The image I portrayed often felt like a prison, trapping me within expectations that had little to do with the genuine connection to my beliefs. I knew I was expected to embody strength, but I often felt fragile and lost, questioning the essence of the faith I represented. The feeling of disconnection grew palpable as I navigated the complexities of political life while trying to reconcile it with my spiritual beliefs. I was surrounded by colleagues who spoke passionately about tradition, yet failed to engage with the deeper questions that stirred within me. Every conversation felt like a dance around the truth, faintly aware of a spiritual war taking place within not just my heart, but in society at large. With the hidden agenda of the elite manipulating our beliefs, it became apparent that our faith was being misused as a tool of power rather than a source of genuine spiritual awakening. Each day brought new anxieties as I considered how to reconcile my beliefs with the realities of my political landscape. Then came the night when everything changed. I found myself restless, a storm brewing in my soul. I eventually drifted into a deep sleep, only to awaken in a mesmerizing dream that would forever alter my understanding of life. In that dream, I was walking through a vast desert, feeling the warm sand beneath my feet. Suddenly, a brilliant light appeared in the distance, illuminating the darkness like a beacon of hope. As I approached, the light coalesced into the figure of Jesus, radiating love and understanding. His presence enveloped me in a way I had never known, a sense of peace that transcended all the fears and doubts that haunted me. Amir. He called gently, and with that single word, a rush of revelation swept through me. He began to unveil the hidden truths about politics, society, and spirituality. I saw how the elite, cloaked in deception, had woven fear and division into the very fabric of our existence. Jesus revealed to me the interconnectedness of our struggles, showing me that our faith could either free us or imprison us, depending on how it was wielded. The realization that faith, meant to be a source of liberation, had become a tool for control, shook me to my core. I understood then that the spiritual conflict I felt within was part of a larger battle for truth. As I awoke from the dream, an urgency began to swell within me. Everything that had previously felt stagnant suddenly ignited with purpose. I recognized that my journey was no longer just about my personal awakening. It was about a mission to reveal the truth to others. I felt compelled to engage with my community, to discuss what I had learned, even as the fear of backlash loomed over me. The thought of being labeled a heretic or a traitor made my heart race, yet the call to be a voice for truth was undeniable. This was the moment I had been waiting for, and dreading in equal measure, a chance to step into the light and awaken those still enveloped in darkness. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the promise of transformation fueled my resolve. During my prayers, a nagging sense of doubt began to creep in, overshadowing the once clear beliefs I had held so dearly. Each time I knelt, reciting the familiar verses, I found myself grappling with an increasing emptiness that felt both unsettling and liberating. In the stillness of those moments, the words that flowed from my lips began to lose their resonance. Instead of feeling nourished and uplifted by my faith, I found myself questioning the very tenets I had spent my life defending. Could it be that the system I had devoted myself to was, in fact, a spiritual prison? These thoughts haunted me, echoing in my mind long after the prayers had ended. Strange dreams began to plague my nights. I often awoke in a cold sweat, heart racing, filled with a sense of urgency I couldn't shake. One recurring vision was of a radiant man, a figure who radiated warmth and compassion, standing before me with penetrating eyes that seemed to reach into the depths of my soul. I felt both terrified and comforted, torn between a deep longing for connection and the overwhelming fear of what it meant. Who was this man? Why was he appearing in my dreams? As I dug deeper into these questions, I realized I was searching for meaning beyond the confines of tradition, yearning for the truth that lay buried beneath layers of societal expectations. This internal struggle intensified as I sought answers through contemplation and prayer. I began to question the hidden agenda of those who had steered my understanding of faith for so long. The more I reflected, the clearer it became that the elite had crafted a narrative that kept us bound, manipulating our beliefs to maintain control. I envisioned the walls of my spirituality, once a sanctuary, now exposing themselves as barriers to true enlightenment. The realization felt like a revelation crashing down upon me, awakening a part of my spirit that had long been dormant. As my spirit wrestled with the truth, I yearned for an escape from this deception. Desperate for clarity and connection, I surrendered my heart to prayer. I begged for guidance, feeling increasingly isolated amidst the rigors of my political life. It was during a particularly restless night, weighed down by confusion and despair, that I had the dream that would ultimately change everything. The radiant man returned, and this time he spoke my name. "Amir," he said, his voice enveloping me like a warm embrace. "You have the power to awaken others. Let the truth shine through you." This moment felt transcendent. The weight I had been carrying began to lift, replaced by a surge of hope and purpose. Awake and aware of my mission, I understood that this awakening was not just for me. It was a call to action, a spark to ignite a movement toward liberation from the spiritual war waged not only within my heart but also across society. I felt compelled to speak out, to share my revelations, despite the inevitable backlash that came with confronting the status quo. The stories of those who had been demoralized by the hidden agenda provided me with the urgency to forge ahead. I realized that my journey could be a catalyst for others, an invitation for them to explore their doubts and embrace the truths that could lead them to spiritual freedom. The path ahead was uncertain, but my heart raced with the thrill of possibility, ready to stand for the truth I had come to know and love. During a political trip, I found myself behind the wheel, the weight of expectations pressing down on me as I navigated the winding roads. As I turned a corner, everything changed in an instant. A car suddenly swerved into my lane, and before I knew it, I was engulfed in chaos. The world around me faded as my car flipped, metal twisting like paper, until darkness enveloped me entirely. For a brief moment, I was suspended between life and death, a tranquil space that felt both terrifying and oddly comforting. In that darkness, I was awakened by an intense light, one that pierced the void with an unfathomable brilliance. I felt drawn toward it as if it were magnetizing my very soul. As I approached, I realized that it was not just light, it was a presence, a radiant figure standing before me that filled me with peace. It was Jesus. His eyes held a wisdom that went beyond understanding, a love that reached into the depths of my heart. Amir. He called my name, and with that simple utterance, a multitude of doubts I had harbored washed away like sand beneath the tide. In that moment, Jesus began to impart revelations that would change the course of my life forever. He spoke of a spiritual war being waged for the souls of humanity, where deception ruled in the shadows, perpetuated by the elite who manipulated our beliefs to serve their hidden agendas. I witnessed visions of conflict, not just in distant lands, but within the hearts of those around me, including my own. The truth I had clung to for years felt fragile compared to the greater reality he unveiled. It was the first time I truly comprehended how the systems I had supported could enslave rather than liberate, shackling us to fear rather than encouraging an authentic faith. As he continued to enlighten me, I felt a calling to embrace a deeper, truer faith, one tied to freedom and hope rather than fear and obligation. This awakening sparked a fire within me, demanding that I not only acknowledge these truths but act upon them. Jesus urged me to share this revelation with others, to awaken them to the deception they lived under. I realized that the community I served had been trapped in dogma, unable to see the insidious nature of the spiritual war that surrounded us. The urgency behind his message lit a path to transformation, for myself and for others who still wandered in darkness, unaware of the chains that constrained them. As I began to realize the magnitude of what I had experienced, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility settle over me. Could I truly convey the urgency of this awakening to those still entrenched in their beliefs? The fear of backlash loomed over me, yet I understood that the cost of silence would be far greater. I felt compelled to ignite a conversation, to challenge the very structures of thought that had governed my life and the lives of those around me. What lay before me was not simply the task of sharing my experience, but a call to confront the very essence of power dynamics that kept us divided and fearful. This was my chance to stand against the tide of deception and unveil the truth, not just for myself, but for everyone seeking liberation. With renewed determination, I prepared to return to my life, knowing that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges but filled with the promise of awakening. Upon returning to life, the reality of my situation hit me like a tidal wave. I had awakened from a profound experience, yet the joy of discovery was quickly overshadowed by a chilling sense of isolation. My body was alive, but the world felt foreign, filled with shadows where once there had been light. The moment I shared my encounter with Jesus, everything shifted. My own family, who had always been my strongest support, turned against me. I became a pariah, labeled a heretic by those who once looked up to me. Their rejection felt like emotional daggers, piercing through the lingering euphoria of my revelation. The label of heretic was not just a word, It transformed into a heavy cloak I felt compelled to wear wherever I went. Threats began to surface, whispered accusations that only intensified my feelings of guilt and fear. Each glance from my community was a reminder of the chasm that had formed between my past life and the new path on which I found myself. The spiritual war one had felt during my near-death experience now manifested in my day-to-day existence. It wasn't merely an internal struggle. It spiraled into the reality around me. My desire to awaken others to the truth felt monumental, yet the fear of what it might cost me loomed ever larger. In the solitude of my thoughts, the memories of my encounter with Jesus remained an unquenchable flame. His words echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the truths that had been unveiled.